Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain bikes, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You had a good time. You're back at the lot. The Stoke is high. You're talking bikes, nutrition, tech. Everyone's having fun. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you?
I'm hurting.
Oh,
I don't mean to bring the vibe down, but yeah, I'm hurting. I tweaked my back and I'm feeling it, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a very, very busy person right now, and I got a lot going on, and talking bikes and riding bikes is definitely like the reprieve that I need and the fun that I'm craving. And so everyone here joining us on a Wednesday morning or whenever you're deciding to listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube, we appreciate you. And let's bring the Stoke level up a little bit. Well, what happened to your back? The listeners want to know.
It's embarrassing, Danny. This is like classic old age stuff. Like I bent over, I'm riding mountain bikes through like crazy tech and no problem whatsoever. I bend over to pick up a rock the size of a softball and it's like wink. And I was like, oh boy. And that was all she wrote. I had to take the road back to the car. And yeah, man, it was, I don't understand it, man. It's,
so this is Sunday at Mount Penn. You were riding some tech and just the motion of bending over somehow tweaked your back.
It's so embarrassing.
I think we touched on this a little bit briefly, but I think it's time that you get into a little bit of warm up, especially with your back. There's a little bit of active warm up that I do before I work out, before I ride the trainer. And I try to do it before I mountain bike. If I get to the parking lot, a lot of times you got to do I do the warm up at home. A lot of times if I get to the parking lot, I get so like enamored with getting ready for the ride and getting into the ride and then talking to my buddies and and I'm usually like either right on time or a minute late. So I always feel like, I don't want to sit there and make everyone watch while I start to stretch. But there's some active warm-ups. And I'm curious, especially, we're in our upper 40s here. And so younger and older, because you've been throwing your back out since I've known you, to be honest. That back's, I don't know that you could blame old age. That back's been an albatross for you. Dude sleeps on the floor. But whatever works. So Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail in the YouTube comments, like what kind of warm-up routines are people doing? Are people stretching? I know that I've always read that active, what's it called? A dynamic warm-up is better where you're moving. And that is the routine that I have. I picked it up from some sort of mountain bike strength program that I bought like years and years and years ago. I never did the program, but the opening dynamic stretches are great and I still use them. So I'll be happy to show those to you, and hopefully it helps. But let us know, Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. What kind of stretching are you guys doing, you guys and girls, before you ride? Dynamic stretching or static stretching? And what about during the week? I do some mobility. I do some stretching and flexing. I mean, in front of the mirror, of course. Show myself how. Have you seen yourself recently?
That's
right. 2 tickets to the gun show. But I do 15-minute stretches after my weightlifting, which is 2 times a week, maybe 3. That is the first thing to go if I'm busy. The stretching goes out the window. But I do think it helps. I mean, there's just like when you're stretching, you start like hit spots and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was this tight here. Do you do anything like that?
I do nothing. And, I've been thinking about joining.
And pay for
it. Yeah, seriously. But I've been thinking about joining like the Y because not only they have a gym, but they also have basketball courts, but they also have free classes. And I was thinking, do I join a yoga class, to kind of like get myself more flexible, more limber, I don't know.
Mountain bike yoga, Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments, mountain bike yoga. Yay or nay for trail sage? Who's done yoga? Who finds it helpful for? For years and years and years and years, I did a hardcore full 60 minutes of Pilates 2 or 3 times a week. And a lot of stretching, a ton of core work. And I thought it was great. And I visualized, I've talked about this on the podcast, like the harder it got, I just visualized mountain biking. That was when I did a lot of my visualization was in a plank or a side plank that was like, burning me up. And I would just visualize mountain biking. That would get me through it. So it felt very linear that the Pilates work was helping. Yeah. And you are such a movement-oriented rider. you're
know.
moving on the bike so much. So I would think it would be really helpful for you. I'd be very curious to see what people say and to hear your feedback if you do start some sort of program.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, let's see what happens. That's an interesting topic. And we are reviewing listener comments from Ride and Laugh podcast number 29, practical mountain bike tips to progress your jumping, cornering, crash recovery, and more.
Hey now.
And interestingly enough, that was the podcast where we were talking about our experience, among other things, at Mountain Creek Bike Park. Not Mountain Bike Creek Park. We don't go to creek parks. We go to bike parks.
That's a different park. Yeah.
And we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about a follow-up trip to Mountain Creek.
Yes.
On this podcast. So actually really good timing. So anyways, Johnny at Mountain Bike Q&A, which is an awesome podcast. Definitely check it out.
Love
Mountain Bike
Johnny.
Q&A.
Yes.
Yeah. And he does the interviews with all people in the mountain bike world. And yours truly and Sage were also guests on there. So check out our episodes. I'm under the Ride Abides and Sage is under Trail Sage. And Johnny's an awesome dude, really great interviewer. Yeah. And he wrote, love this. I'm the worst as a solo rider. I get so negative in my head. I'm going to start going into a feature with better mental attitude.
Yo.
And Sage, that's what we talk about all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Johnny, I can relate to that because Johnny is a very, what is that? When you put yourself down, what is that?
Deprecating.
Not defeatist, self-deprecating, but he's hilarious. Like he is absolutely hilarious when he does that. But, and I'm not saying to stop that because that is funny, but it's certainly not the way that you want to think about yourself. So if you're just doing it for, an outward thing, that's fine.
Right.
But if that's truly how you feel about yourself, that's definitely the wrong attitude, and I do that too. I'm self-deprecating. Gosh, I can't say that word. I almost said self-defecating.
I know.
Self-defecating.
I almost joked that, but I didn't want to imply that Johnny was self-defecating. I was like, no, I love Johnny. I'm not making that joke. Thank you for making it about yourself. You can't get more self-deprecating than calling yourself self-defecating.
I'm defecating right now.
I think we have a podcast title name, Self-Defecating. What's up with that?
But yes, so he's notorious for that. And I love it. That's part of his personality. But yeah, if you're approaching the features like that, and that is truly how you feel about yourself, that's not a good way to do it. So mentally getting yourself up and telling yourself, you know what, I am a good mountain biker. I can do these. Much better framework to work from.
I actually think that Johnny is funny enough that he doesn't need to be self-deprecating. And if that's his internal talk externally, I think that if he were to adopt a more positive attitude and say, no, I'm good at these things, I'm getting better at these things, and start to have that momentum build, that he would just be funny in other ways. Because funny is funny. He's a funny guy. He doesn't need to be self-deprecating. And look, it is very fun. He's funny. You check out his channel. He's a really funny dude. So maybe you could balance that where you can kind of make those jokes, but then not actually have that be your internal dialogue when you're out on the trail. And that was my commented back to him, like, dude, you're a good rider.
That's right.
And the skills are in there. Unlock your skills. And to do that, gratitude and appreciation and positive thinking. I got this. And throughout the week, I got this. I can do this. He talked about the really difficult, scary wooden features. He lives in Florida. And, that was getting his head. And so the mantra is, I got this. I'm good at riding wooden features. I keep my eyes up. I'm centered, whatever it is, and see what happens. Johnny, I bet you it gets better. And come up to Pennsylvania and we'll give you a tour.
I tell you what, Danny, I've seen some of these places in Florida, the Santos and that, man, some of those wooden features, I would be defecating. Like there's some legit features out there, man.
Yeah, that's for sure. No, some of that stuff does look super, super scary. I absolutely agree with that. And it looks really cool. The trail builders making cool things out of Florida, which is notoriously flat. Really, really cool. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Salty Shreds said, talking about jumping, said, coming from a dirt jump background, airtime becomes the thing that you seek the most with mountain bikes. And he says it's a different body position and the angle, but he agrees that it's the repetition. And I think that's kind of where we are, that the more we're doing this, the more you're starting to dial in the technique and the timing. So that's what it comes down to, I think.
You know, we often talk about repetition, and it's like, it sounds so obvious, and it is. It's like, if you want to get better at something, you should do it over and over. Let me add one thing, and that is make sure that you're doing it right. You know, if you're doing something over and over, but you're practicing something that is wrong, or you're doing the wrong thing, and now you're just getting better at doing the wrong thing. So, you know, if you have a buddy, make sure they're taking video of you, or set up a tripod, something, so that you can see if it's jumping, like, we'll take a picture of yourself jumping. Make sure that you're actually doing the right thing, because the worst thing that you could do is cement in a bad habit. And, you know, I'm guilty of that all the time. I cement in bad habits, and then you're like, oh, now I got to do all this work to kind of get that out and rework a good habit. So yeah, that's all I'll say about repetition.
On the same note, if you have access to a coach or mountain bike park, where there's some sort of coaching, like, you know, then I do that early in the process, or even if you're in the middle of the process, do it. But I think getting a coach that can help unlock some of that stuff would be really cool. And there's online coaches too. You could film yourself. I know Lee Likes Bike does it online. You could film yourself, and then the coach will look at it and give you tips.
Yeah.
Really interesting follow-up email from Matt Fitzgerald, who was the gentleman that told us about the braking bumps.
Yeah.
And so we followed up and we said, we're like, braking bumps aren't from braking. And we did a whole bit on, you know, where they come from. And Matt wrote back, hey, Dan, I heard this week's episode and I just wanted to clarify my point. I do believe braking bumps are 100% caused by braking, but I think that we were originally saying that it was from skidding in particular, and he's saying it's not just skidding that's to blame. So
that's right.
It is braking. It's not necessarily skidding. And I think they are worse on the trails that get ridden the most. But
yeah,
I didn't want to leave misinformation that we had attributed to Matt out into the universe without correcting that little tidbit. So
yeah, and I think we said that.
Okay.
Yeah, in the episode, I said I said that I still think it's due to braking, but I also think that the more that you use the trail, that made a lot of sense to me. So I was like, it's probably a little bit of both. So I got your back, Matt.
That's true. That sounds familiar. So yeah, good job, Trail Sage. All right.
Hey now.
If you haven't done so already, make sure that you like and review us on your favorite podcast player, and on YouTube, like and subscribe, and set us to auto download so that you don't miss an episode. Certainly tell your friends. If you are listening on Apple, you can go in and leave a 5-star review, but you can also leave an actual review. So please do so. Those are really helpful, and we get to read them. This week's review is from El Steveo, and the title is Fun Listen. And Steveo says, gets better every episode. Great podcast. So thank you, Stevo. It must be Stevo. It's not Steveo. I'll tell you what, we get more content out of the names on the Apple podcast than we do on the actual reviews. Panda Biatch, and I mean, there's all sorts of crazy names. Yes. El Stevo. So
there we go.
Yes. Yes.
I'm so glad I'm not the one reading those. Yep.
You know, it's all put together into one word. So if I don't write it down and take a look at it, you know, I just copy and paste it and put it in my notes. I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, Steve-O. And then as soon as I read it out loud, I was like, that's Steve-O. That's Steve-O. There's no spaces. It's just Steve with an O at the end. And so it looked like Steve-O, you know, like Swedish Steve. But no, it's an American Steve-O.
Yeah, it's like when someone gives you a phone number and they don't separate it out like bap, 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 bap,
right.
You know, and it's like you read the number, it's all messed up. I totally get it, dude. It's not you.
There's a cadence to these things. Yes, absolutely.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Well, as I alluded to earlier, we went back to Mountain Creek, and the last time I was there, I skipped the pre-ride on Dominion Trail and I crashed, and that was kind of the end of the day. And I had gratitude that I didn't get hurt too badly. But it ended a little bit on a dark note. but there were still some wins there, some big wins, and so we really like the fact that we could get back there like what was it, a week later or a week and a half or 2 weeks later, and start riding these trails again that we had just ridden and gotten comfortable on was really huge. I did want to shout out before we start talking about our day and what we learned at Mountain Creek and what we can pass on to the listeners as far as what we learned, is that the first time we were there in the parking lot, we saw Ski Freak New Jersey, which is Robin. Mm-hmm. And the week before, I had just read her Apple review, Ski Freak New Jersey, which, by the way, was all one word. And it took me a second to like put it together that it wasn't some sort of strange long word. It took me a second to unpuzzle into Ski Freak New Jersey. But yeah, we just happened to see her. And so, and she had just left this Apple review, and we saw her in the parking lot. We took a picture with her, and we didn't get to ride with her because we just didn't see her on the mountain. But that was pretty cool, and we certainly appreciate Robin. Thank you for listening and for leaving your review. Very kind of you.
Yes.
All right, Sage, what was your impression of Mountain Creek second time around? How did you feel?
We had not been to Mountain Creek for a long time, so that first time it took me a while to get warmed up. This time we went in there, we were like, we knew what was happening. You know, we did like one run on Greenhorn or whatever it was, which is the green trail, got right into Breakout and then right into Tempest. Like really got through the trails very quickly with the intent of getting to Dominion. And I got to tell you, dude, what a great day. What a great day.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was definitely in my head a little bit after the crash, and I was questioning my ability to clear those jumps on Dominion. As we started to ride, I felt my mind wandering and just not being real focused and not necessarily even really wanting to be there. I was tired. I had a lot going on. And then I don't know if you've ever experienced this, listener, but you're like doing what you want to be doing and not enjoying it. And then that just makes you like kind of be even harder on yourself. Like I should be having fun. Like I don't want to not want to be here. It's, you know, it can all spiral very quickly when you kind of get into that wrong headspace.
Yeah.
And I just took a moment and it just kind of happened where I just kind of like looked up and I was like, you know, what a beautiful day. And I'm not at work and I'm out here with my best buddy, like riding bikes. And like, I was just suddenly, I just like kind of like felt this gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's what we talk about all the time, you know, and I didn't necessarily intrinsically do it, but it happened where I started to feel this gratitude just for the day and the moment. And then I stopped thinking about it. And and from that point on, I was just able to enter the flow state. I was just able to which is just being present and doing what we love to do. It's fun, you know, it's joy. It's just pure joy and fun and hanging out with friends and riding bikes and starting to clear jumps. And so that really was an aha moment for me. And that's something that I wrote down in my gratitude journal. Like, thank you for that moment. And something that I want to be able to keep in my back pocket, you know, when you're having one of those days, is just find something to have gratitude for. It's so helpful. Whether you're mountain biking or just in regular life, just reach for a couple of things. And in this case, it was just like the nice weather.
Yeah.
And then that just, instead of spiraling down, I spiraled up, and it really launched me into having a really wonderful day.
Yeah. 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 For me, when we first got there, you know, first of all, that drive is ridiculous. So, I mean, it's such a boring drive. You're just like totally drained. It's long, you know, your body hurts after, you know, a ride like that, especially at our age. But, you know, the minute that we got there,
we're not that old.
I mean, you're right. Well, aside, when we got there, we ran into two guys right at as we're getting our tickets, and that lifted my spirits, you know, and that was something that I found gratitude in. You know, it was like somebody recognized us and they were like, you know, he was telling us about trails that were close to him, and he was taking somebody for their first mountain bike ride. And man, that's the kind of stuff I love to hear. And it just instantly put me in like a great mood. And it was Devin and Jason. And we actually ended up doing a lap with Devin later.
We did several laps with Devin.
Yeah.
Jason, it was his first time at a bike park.
Yeah. And he totally undersold us, by the way. Like when he was talking at the ticket counter, he was like, he was underselling his skills. And I was like, I started thinking like, he was so humble. And I was just like, I felt like such an idiot. What was it? It was on Tempest. I was like, you want to follow us? And he's like, yeah, I'll follow you. And I'm sitting there and I'm explaining all the features. Like I'm totally talking to him as if he was like an intermediate rider. I'm like, and then you want to do this, and then you want to do this. And like, he was such a great rider. I ended up behind him on one of the runs and he just started sending it with these whips. And I'm like, what? Where was this? Like, you are such a good rider. Oh, I felt like an idiot.
I didn't get the experience seeing him. You guys were talking about him because he was saying that he cleared all the jumps, and then you were like, yeah, he cleared them like with massive boost and style, and and so I was like, oh, well, do you want to go first? Because I know I was probably holding him up, and he was like, no, I don't like to lead. If I lead, bad things happen. Like he just flat out did not want to be in front. So he was behind me all the time. And after each run that we did with him, your eyes were just getting bigger and bigger. Like, dude, you're amazing at this. So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was so good. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, totally undersold himself. So
really cool guy, really nice guy. So he recognized you as Trail Sage, and we told him about the podcast. And you get to ride the lift together and do a couple runs. And it's cool getting to know people. So really nice dude. Yeah. So we got way more comfortable on Tempest. We were clearing everything on Tempest last time. This time we were on it much sooner, and I think feeling even better. And we did the anthem drop. There was one period where you almost fell off the anthem drop. Like there was like an oh no moment, right? Yeah. What happened?
Nothing. It was not my fault. There's that rock right in front of the wood entry, and my tire literally slipped in between the rock and there's actually another rock. It's like a divot. And man, when that happened, it just caught me. It just threw my front tire, and that thing is like a boardwalk. It's so long. Yeah. And when that caught my back tire, it started sending me off. I tried to recover, and then I couldn't. So I just was like, you know what? You better just stop. So thankfully I was able to stop. But yeah, that was just one of those things. You got to be prepared. You never know. I was in the right frame of mind. I was focused. It's just one of those things, and I was glad that I was ready for it. And I was glad that you weren't on top of me, because that's the scary part.
Well, stopping on that plank, on that boardwalk that's skinny is not easy. So
no.
Yeah. So what we realized was that the anthem drop is actually one of the harder drops there, because you can't see the line getting onto it. It's rocky. You could get caught up in that break in the rock. And then you have to get a little bit of speed on the boardwalk, on the plank, on the skinny. And it's very skinny. It's very narrow. So, but we did it all day long. And then we decide, okay, it's time to do Dominion. And this time I am like definitely doing a pre-ride. Last time I decided that pre-rides were for suckers, and I crashed right away. Which suckers. Zan at Sploosh MTB, who said he did the same exact thing. He went to Mountain Creek. I did it again. He went to Mountain Creek, and he was going to pre-ride Dominion, and instead he just decided to send it. And I think it sounded like he over-rotated the other way. I want to go back and watch his video and see what happened. But, you're feeling good. And sometimes it's just like, I just want to send it. But we did a proper pre-ride. We cased everything. We landed on top of everything. But we started to get comfortable. And I had just crashed on this trail, a week and a half, 2 weeks before. And so the pre-ride was just that. Then the re-ride was starting to send it. And I started to clear a little bit more, and I am getting this arc correctly. I am starting to feel good on these. I think I can go a little bit faster. And by the time we got to the free ride, the third lap, I was clearing just about everything. I was starting to feel really good. There's that one really big long one there.
Oh my gosh.
That on Upper Dominion that I have not cleared yet, and I just squeezing brake. But I feel like if we went back and we spent more time on Dominion, that I would just build up my confidence to where I'm not brake checking, and I'm sending it. How did you feel once we started riding Dominion? Because those jumps, while they're not all that much bigger than the Tempest jumps, they are way lippier.
Yeah, super lippy. And this is and this is one of those where it's tough to follow you because you have a boost, and I like to go faster. So on trails like that, I tend to open up a little bit more space. And, we'll fluctuate. And I think you do the same for me because I'm so light. You carry more momentum. So we kind of fluctuate our space. Having said that, the confidence was through the roof, and seeing you ahead of me and boosting the jump. First of all, it was a gratitude moment because it was just like, okay, I'm so glad that you were in the right headspace to get this, because I was worried. I was worried that you'd have like an injury marker. And just to see you do this, and I don't know if other people can relate to that, watching their buddy, who had like previously crashed on something, just get it, and you're just like, yeah, and you're like, wait, I gotta still ride, So it was really cool. That last jump that you're talking about, not only is it steep, but it's really long. I don't want to say that I can't do it, but I didn't feel good about it, and I was landing on top of that thing like it was time for dinner, like it was. Yeah, it was bad. It was
tabletop.
bad. But in any case, tabletop. So
talk about what you did succeed at.
Yeah, the jumping, man, I felt so good, Danny. I think all that work that we put in on Tempest, it started clicking in, and we just talked about doing repetition, right? And you and I had taken a lot of video on Tempest, and so I felt like my form was right. It was just a question of confidence, and when I applied that to Dominion, I think I got almost all of them, at maybe not all in succession, but at least one time I got all of them, except for that last one, and that's never happened for me. And so it was such a great moment. I was like, oh, this is why people like jumping. Yeah. This is kind of fun when you're clearing it, the salvation jumps at the bottom. I got 1 and 2, but that third one, again, it's really tall, really big. And I think the focus was just like, it's too much. It's so much to process in my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to that. Like, I'm not a thinker. So when you're forcing me to think, it's bad, and I get overwhelmed. So I think, like you said, if we had another day there, I probably would have gotten everything and it would have felt a lot better. But you know what? I was really pleased, Danny. I was so pleased.
Yeah, well, we took a little break. We did 3 runs. I think we did 3 to count exactly, but we did somewhere around 3 runs on Dominion. Then we took a little break, got some water, and we went back to Dominion. And it's starting to get late in the day. And I don't know, do all bike parks name their drops? I mean, I do love how Mountain Creek has all these drops are named. I think a lot of them are named. It's just Blue Mountain doesn't have names. I feel like we should name them at Blue Mountain. But one of maybe the biggest drop on the mountain, there's when you're on this black jump trail, there's a part where it splits, and you can either do the pipeline drop, which I think is one of the easier drops on the mountain. It's actually a really slow speed drop, and that sends you into another tabletop jump, which is awesome. Or you can go to the right, and that's the double black version. That's the double black jump line, and that's called Covenant. And I had done this 3 years ago. It was a while ago, and some guys had told me the speed, and that day was one of those like just magical days where everything unlocked, everything worked great. I cleared almost all the jumps on Dominion, with the exception of that big one, for the first time, and then you do the drop, and then it sends you into this huge cannon that just really puts you into the air for a while. And that had really been in your mind, and it had been in mine also, because we've been back there 2 or 3 times that I have not done the Covenant drop again. And I didn't remember the speed or anything like that. So what were you thinking? I knew you really wanted to take a look at it. At one point you were like, you kind of like showed your cards. You're like, oh yeah, we're doing it.
Well, let me first rewind a little bit, because I think what was so great was I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to be patient. And, we don't get to Mountain Creek all that often. And being patient with myself and allowing myself not to do Covenant was really hard, because, watching your excitement and doing it. And I was just like, oh, I want to do it too. But I knew I wasn't ready.
Oh, you mean that previous day? When you didn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had been there after that too. And I still didn't do it. And even the last time before that, and just being patient and waiting for the right moment, knowing when that was, that's huge. Not forcing yourself to do something because, hey, I don't know when I'm going to be here next. That's not the right reason to do something, and that's when you got hurt. I was really excited to do Covenant, and I was like, you know what? No, drop it. This wasn't the right time. let it go. And today just happened to be the right time and everything came together, Danny. And the other thing that I want to note is, we kind of joked about like taking a tape measure with us, but it was really nice to know the dimensions of all these drops that we had been doing. So previous to this, we had gone to blue, and blue was, I think, 12 up and 20 out. The Anthem drop, that is 10 up and 14 out. And Covenant, because we watched Jeff Lenoski's video, we knew that that was 14 up and 20 out, or 18 or something like that. But it's so knowing all of those dimensions made me feel really comfortable. Like, okay, this is the highest drop I will attempt to do up until this point, but I knew it was only 2 more feet higher than the Blue Mountain drop. So I felt really good about it. Like everything about it seemed to make sense. And this was the right time. And I got to tell you, bud, this was such an amazing moment. And I got to tell you, thank you for going first again, because we didn't get the pleasure this time of watching anybody go off of it. So you had to go off of what you thought was the right speed. And my goodness, Danny, you hit this thing so smooth. And I got to tell you, had you not, I probably would have second guessed it. If you had flubbed I would have been like, maybe today's not the day. But you hit it like butter, man. Oh, it was so good.
It felt really good. And, I went back and you kind of like offered to go first, but you were like, but you've done it before. And I was like, you know what? I have done it before and I'm confident in this. And I had done the trail gap at Sears.
That's right.
So I was feeling really good in my drop ability. So I was just like, yeah, you know what? I can do this one first. And I was just trying to remember how fast I went. And I couldn't really remember. It was too long ago. So I just kind of went on instinct. Like, I feel like I should be going at a decent clip. And, it's just like jumping. I think drops are easier than jumps. There's less to do. But we have enough repetition at drops that you start to get a feel for what the speed should be. And you don't have to be exact. You can be a little bit short or a little bit long. You can be a little bit fast, a little bit slow. You just got to be within that sweet spot. And it just so happened that I absolutely nailed the speed. I felt really good. I came into it, and my motto for drops is stay low, spot the landing. So I'm staying low, and then as soon as I can see the landing, I'm matching the angle of the bike to the angle of the landing. The tip on the cannon is maybe a slight brake check, but really not much to do there. You just kind of drop and then ride off of this cannon, and it sends you perfectly. It sends you way into the air. You're in there. You're in the air for a long time. Longer than I'm used to jumping right now, but I think that's really good for us. And then it arcs you perfectly. I caught backside, and after I landed, I was just like laughing out of just joyous laughter. I was like, dude, it is so much fun. That is so much fun. So I was really excited for you, because I was like, yeah, you totally can do this. And we've been talking about this for years. Yeah, you could do this drop, and that the cannon would be good for you because it would get you comfortable being in the air. And I think it'd be good for me as well. But, you were so scared of being in the air. We've always been saying, like, that cannon it's a ramp jump, essentially. You don't have to do anything, which is your favorite kind. But you did it, and you looked great, and you were all smiles afterwards.
Yeah.
I was so excited for you. I was so happy for you. I was having fun, but I was definitely more excited for you. I was just like, I knew that was like a major bucket list thing for you to check off. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that a thing? And that's the best when you have a good riding buddy or group, and everyone is so excited for that other person, and that you can feel that energy, as soon as you did it, I'm behind the camera, and, I'm watching, I'm half like looking in the camera, and I'm half watching you do this thing. And man, I hear you whooping and hollering, and it just, that vibe instantly made me feel like, yeah, you know what, Sage? This is the day. You got it. That's what you want. You want to feel that. And so as soon as you said, Sage, you got this. It's so awesome. It's so much fun. I got up to the starting gate, so to say, and I got myself ready, and I went through my whole mantra. I just slowed my heart down. I trusted myself. I knew I could do it, and for me, I don't like anything in my brain. Like, I know you say things yourself, like get low and blah, blah, blah. I clear everything out. I let the instincts do the work. The hardest part was just trusting in that speed, because again, it's like that Blue Mountain drop in that it feels almost too slow. you know, but you're like, no, this is right. And you just trust it. And you were right, man. As soon as you get off of this thing, you catch the landing and it just, you don't do anything. You know, maybe you scrub a little bit of brake and then that cannon sends you. And what a feeling of just weightlessness, you know, and it's just like, whoa,
so good.
You know, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I ended up doing that thing twice. I wanted to cement it in, which is another thing that, you know, we talked about in a different episode about cementing in something, you know, just not doing it just once, but getting a second run at it. The second time I did it, I went too fast and didn't catch much of the landing and then didn't scrub any brake and ended up overshooting the cannon. I actually went to flat. That was scary. Holy crap.
You were in the air for so long, and I saw you almost missed the landing completely. You did catch a little landing, which really helped.
Oh my gosh, Danny, it was a self-defecating moment. Yeah. I was in there. I was like, oh my Lord.
Yeah. That's crazy when that happens. But so afterwards, we were adrenally pretty fatigued, but we were also just fatigued. We were just tired, and it was such a huge win. You could have convinced me to go back up and ride Dominion again, and because it was so much fun. That trail is so much fun when you start clearing it. Luckily, you were the wise one of the day, and cooler heads prevailed, and you were like, "Hey, that's it." And so we didn't get to do Covenant in the flow. We definitely need to get back and get comfortable in Dominion a little earlier and start hitting Covenant in the flow of the ride. So I'm really excited about that. But did you want to add anything about the end of the ride and that decision?
Oh, no, I just wanted to shout out Vinny. We ran into Vinny. It was probably our last run or second to last run. And, you know, it was
our warm-up run. It was our warm-up run on Tempest after our break. And yes. And then afterwards we went to Dominion. So he followed us through Tempest.
Yeah. So we get on the gondola. This is the best part. We get on the gondola and this guy gets on the gondola behind us and out of nowhere, he's like, "Man, you're a lot taller in person." And we're like, I'm sorry. Do we know you?
No. That's not all it was. It was the height difference is much bigger. I didn't realize how big the height difference was. So I don't know if he was calling you short or calling me a lanky, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, dude, right. I'm a lanky. So yeah, I realized that when we talk about how much heavier I am than you, it's because I'm 6'3", and how tall are you?
Like 5'7" on a good day. Yeah, pretty small guy.
There's a lot more body here. There's just a lot more of Dan than there is of Sage. So when we talk about me being 50 pounds heavier, we're both pretty trim guys.
Oh yeah,
I'm really lanky. I thought that was a really funny comment. And but he was a huge fan of the podcast. Like he knew the podcast, and he was really appreciative of the vibe on the podcast and what we're doing for the mountain bike community, and just like a really cool dude. He had a really high vibe. It was really cool to be able to do a lap with him, and we got a picture with him. So Vinny was really good peeps, and appreciated meeting him. And it's fun, man. Getting out there and meeting listeners is really cool. So if you see us out there, absolutely come up and say hi. It was neat.
Yeah. And he was a local guy. He's from Sears, so the place that we had just come from. And he was all excited that we had done the jumps that he had. That's his local place, and he was like excited to see that we were talking about it on the podcast previous. So shout out Vinny, just a really good dude.
So I was in Arizona last week. So Mountain Creek took place before that because we didn't get a chance to talk about it because we talked so much about the Sears ride, which had any style trail and deserved its own podcast. But I did get a brief South Mountain National Trail ride on Sunday. I didn't do my full loop that I usually do, which is pretty big. But I did a great ride, out and back ride. And at one point I can feel a rider behind me, and this guy I could tell is going pretty fast. I'm not a local there, so I don't know the lines as well as some of these guys. And so I said, "Hey, why don't you go on by?" And so he did, and he was on an analog bike, and he was just crushing. He was just like going really fast. I was like, "Oh, let me see if I can keep up with this local," and I couldn't. And then we get to this really, really difficult climb, and he didn't make it to the top of the climb. I got like 95% onto the top of this thing. I've only made it once, and I was really close to getting it, but that put us at the top of the trail at the same time. And so we stopped and we started talking, and he's riding a Reeb, which you don't see Reebs too often in the wild, right? This is the bike that Brian on the bike, being the MTB, Ryan, he rides for Reeb, and Jeff Lanoski rides for Reeb. Yeah. And they're steel frames. They're really cool, made in the USA bikes. And I was like, wow, you got a Reeb. And so I end up following him a little bit more to the end of the trail. And he's like, well, I'm not that fast. And he was fast. He was plenty fast. Yeah. And he was a really cool dude. His name was Eric. And so we got to talking a little bit, went back to the lot, and, we're talking mountain bikes, and he got the Reeb because he's 6'7", and Jeff Lanoski's like 6'7". I was like, that's so he met Jeff at Sedona Mountain Bike Fest, and there was Reeb demos there. So it makes perfect sense for like the big guy to go get the big guy's, bike. Yeah. This bike fit him so well that I had no idea he was that big. Like, he looked proportional to the bike. It wasn't like a big guy on a little bike. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because if we had just been standing, obviously I would have noticed that he was much taller than me. I mean, it's unusual for me to meet people that are that much taller than me. But he's a cool dude, and I was happy to meet him, and it was really cool to see the Reeb in the wild. And Eric, giant man, giant shredder, very cool.
Yo, shout out Eric, that's awesome. Well, I had two rides, but the second ride is going to be part of my gratitude. So I'll just talk about my first ride, which was I went to the Phoenixville Bike Park. I got an invite from Brian.
Yes.
And he said, listen, I'm going up with my buddy Brett, and we're going to be practicing jumps. And I was like, oh, yo, that sounds perfect. Let's do it. So I met him up there. I was totally
jelly of that.
Oh my gosh, Danny, it was exactly what I needed, because again, this was one of those redemption things where, I had not cleared that fifth jump, at least not cleanly. I was still casing it. So going there with Brian,
you have to give a little context. At Phoenixville Bike Park, we talked about it a number of times, but if you're just listening for the first time, it's a local bike park. There's beginner line, intermediate, and expert jump line. There are wooden booters. And I've gotten it, but you have to really commit to it. Yeah, it's a little scary for sure.
Yeah, the nice thing about Phoenixville Bike Park is they're all lippy jumps, but the lips are all wood, so you get a consistent takeoff every time. There's no watch out for this rock or this rut. It's consistent every time, and then the landing is dirt. So it's these giant tables. Right. It takes me a while to get warmed up, and I was getting a little bit frustrated. But after watching Brett and Brian and following them, I started getting more comfortable. Man, I was clearing everything. Not only was I clearing everything, but I started adding in the tabletop with the bar turn. Like, it's happening, brother. It's happening.
Yo, I saw on Instagram, Brian posted some video of you guys, and I was like, is that Sage? Like, I first of all, he's clearing everything, and there's moves happening, and what did I miss? One ride? But no, I'm so excited for you. So what happened on that last jump? Are you getting to the place where you're not thinking anymore? Are you starting to instinctually ride these jumps?
Yeah. It's getting to that point where I'm starting to instinctually doing these jumps. The question is getting that speed. Once I get that speed, then I'm not thinking about it, which is exactly where I want to be. I wanted to get to that place where I don't have to think about, okay, now you compress and now you absorb and now you do that. Like, it's just happening.
Yes.
And now I'm just able to like focus on the things that I want to do, which is like, okay, now after seeing your tabletop, I was like, dude, that looks way cooler than the bar turn. So I started working that in, and I started putting the bar turn in, and Brian's the best. Like, he's giving me like coaching advice. He's like, try and carve it out a little bit better. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm getting one-on-one with the man.
I want to go to the Phoenixville with Brian. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Brett had never done big jumps like this. He was clearing everything, and it was unbelievable. So
awesome.
Yeah, just good shout out to Brian. Yeah, ran into a bunch of people there. Hannah, Jay, Adam. Adam, by the way, was on like this deep dirt jumper, just like you have. this man, I'm convinced that I need to get a DJ because this man was like, he was like practically sideways on some of these jumps. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I really think the hardtail is the way to go. I got to figure out how to get a DJ. I really do.
Yeah. And an e-bike and a new full suspension bike. We got the list is getting bigger. It's supposed to be N+1, not N+3.
I know. Terrible.
I hear you though. I want to update my DJ. I want to get a better front suspension. Maybe I'll talk to Keswick Cycles about that. I want to improve that front suspension. Yeah. Make it a little bit more stable because I didn't love it at the bike. We took it to Phoenixville Bike Park and I didn't love it. It felt a little flimsy. So maybe updating the front suspension. What do you know? What do you think? Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail or YouTube comments. Is that the upgrade for a dirt jumper? I mean, it's a frame and it's front suspension, right? You know, that's basic. That's, I don't know. The dirt jumper is going to be like, no, there's a lot more to it than that. But I mean, for the basics, for us to like start being able to use that thing a little bit more confidently, it's a specialized. It's an older specialized P3, I think.
That's right.
So
yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome, man. I am super stoked for you. So were you clearing number 5, the last jump, confidently, like by the end of the day, like each run?
When I was casing, it was just a little bit. And the only reason why I was casing was because I was doing these moves. So I was totally fine with it. Like, it doesn't bother me if I'm casing a little bit. You know, if I'm working on something, who cares? You know, so in my head, I was thinking about what Josh and Ben Spokes and all the people that left the comments about making shapes. And that was going through my head. I was like, oh man, I'm making shapes. Like this makes sense. You know, I'm having fun in the air, you know?
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so interesting because you can watch all the YouTube videos, you can get all the tips, but it's not, those will help. It will absolutely help, but you got to put the work in. You know, and you can manifest it, and you wrote this down in your gratitude journal, and you've been saying, "I'm good at jumping mountain bikes." Like this has been a long time in the coming. Not even that long. I mean, this is since we started the podcast, which isn't all that long. We're on episode 31. You know, so all those things help. Keep doing those things. Keep watching. If you're learning how to jump, or if you're trying to improve your jumping, or anything in life, you know, keep working at it. Keep just putting the work into it, and it will happen for you. That's where the magic happens. It's just so cool and beautiful when it does. So I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to see you unlock this more and more on the trails. I got visions of us like just, you know, training and getting trains of riders down these jump trails and everyone throwing in style and us being, you know, in that group of comfortable riders in the air. It's really fun. It's been an awesome summer of progressing our jumps. It's been really cool. So gratitude.
Yeah. The other ride that I did, and this will go right into my gratitude. The other ride I did was at Mount Penn. So Terry and David, who are my Patreon members, they're like, hey, listen, we'd love a tour of Penn. So I took them up to Penn, and man, those two guys, it's so great taking someone new to a place that you know so well, you know, and just being able to take them through. We did the double down slab, which is just a really, the double down slab is one of those that's really technical to get into, but the slab itself is really easy. So you do all the hard work up front and then you get to enjoy the slab. And I would say the same thing about Sam Malone. You know, that's the other big slab. All the hard work's before you get to the slab. The slab itself is actually really easy. And that is where I pulled my back because you and I had that alt line on Sam Malone. And one of the rocks that we used to pop up on was out of place. And so I was like, hey, Terry and David, you know, I'm going to show you this line, but let me move this rock. So I bent over to pick up that rock and boom, it tweaked out on me. And that was it. I knew it. You know that feeling when you pull your back and you're like, oh boy, you know. So I just sat there for a second and I turned to Terry and David and I said, I think I got to call it right here. So I was kind of bummed because there was so much more that I wanted to show those guys, and they were so eager to see it and learn it and ride it. And my goodness, I mean, well, you know, Terry, because we rode with Terry. Terry's he's a fearless dude. Like he just likes to go after it. And and David is super strong rider. Like he's more XC than he is free ride. But he was really enjoying, I mean, you want to talk about challenging climbs and challenging tech, like just riding XC wise, like, we were pushing his limits too. So that was really fun. And I was really bummed that I didn't get to show those guys more, but my gratitude is to those two guys because the minute that it happened, they went from like Yeah, Mount Penn, awesome to, hey, let's get Sage back to his car, and they were so kind and so helpful. Terry even came over and helped me load my bike into the van. That's how much pain I was in, and that's, if you're a rider and you're in a group, I think that's the kind of riders that you want to aspire to be, not putting self first, but, switching off and just being able to like transition to helping somebody that needs help. I really appreciated it. That meant a lot to me. So Terry and David, I'm so sorry that I ruined your ride, but thank you so much for taking care of me and making sure that I got back to my car okay. So shout out to those two.
Yes, I have gratitude for Terry and David also for helping you. And I also have gratitude that I wasn't there, because it would have been a different story when you talked about Dan dropping you and continuing to ride, because it's Sunday. So,
Yes,
brother's got to finish his ride. We ride. Yeah, no, I know the feeling where you're like, I ruined these other people's ride. And it's just like, no, you know what? We're all in this together, and let's get you back to the car. Let's figure this out. And let's, just make sure that everyone's okay and safe to ride the next day. So, mountain bikers are awesome. It really is. It's a great community. I don't know if is it the vibe of mountain biking that you just enter into when you become a mountain biker, or is it the kind of people that are attracted to riding bikes on rocks and dirt are cool people? What came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where that necessarily, but the culture of mountain biking is just so cool.
So great.
There's so much Stoke.
Great.
It's just like the Stoke and sharing the Stoke. And that's what we're doing on the podcast. That's what you're doing listening right now. RNL at Gmail or YouTube comments, sharing the Stoke and telling stories and encouraging people. So let us know, whatever stories you want to share with us. We love seeing them on the Gmail, and anything you want to comment on as far as what we talked about today, jumping skills or jumping practice, or where you are in your journey. And or anything. What was your covenant? Do you have a covenant feature? Sage checked off this feature that has been there for years, or do you remember checking off a big feature for you? And now where are you? Now what's next? You know what I mean? What's next, Sage? Like what is next? I feel like the next thing is for us to go to Mountain Creek and ride Dominion like half the day, get there earlier and really start putting some good laps down. That's what I feel like is next. But what do you think?
Next for me is I just want to keep making shapes. Like I really, it's such a cool feeling to just be confident in the air and enjoying that. I cannot wait. And I also want to start to try and do something on the drops too, because something like Covenant, you're in the air for a long time as you're free falling down. And I've seen people like do a tabletop or turn off of those things. So those are probably the next things on my list. I don't know that there are other drops that are bigger than Covenant, at least not around us.
I think that's a great one. It's just getting more comfortable in the air, making shapes in the air, getting that to be more instinctive. That's huge. I mean, that's where it's at, and more bike park days. So I love it. And excellent gratitude to your mountain bike buddies and Terry and David for helping you, and just, mountain bikers in general. It's just such a great community. So it's awesome. Mountain bikers are awesome. My mountain bike gratitude of the week. We were talking about the day at Mountain Creek Bike Park, and I'm wearing my big giant helmet that we were joking about before, which is the Fox Rampage Pro Carbon MIPS helmet. Ooh. And it is quite the bobblehead, but it keeps me safe. The thing is that when you get these downhill helmets, they come with a D-ring closure.
Oh, God.
And so I don't have a lot of experience using the D-ring, but you have to thread. It's 2 rings, and then you thread the hook through the strap through both rings, and then back through another one, and then wrap it around, and then it buttons. And I'm wearing gloves, and I'm not really that well practiced at this. And honestly, my hands were getting so tired from doing this and your hands get tired at bike park anyway. You start, from the braking bumps and whatnot, that it was driving me crazy. This thing was driving me crazy and then when you're like mid trail and you stop to look at a feature or stop to look at a drop or something, or want to take a picture or a video of your buddy, I'm not taking my helmet off because I don't want to have to redo this D-ring. And I was just like, I don't know if I have to get a different helmet. Like I can't deal with this thing, but I wanted the protection of the legitimate downhill helmet. And So I was doing research, and eventually I stumbled onto these D-ring replacements that were really made for motorcycles. And essentially, you don't have to like cut the D-ring out. You don't have to change anything. You just attach this quick release buckle kit. And now it's like it's a ratchet system. And then there's a string I can pull to release it. And so now my helmet went off and on with like incredible ease. I will put a link if anybody has a D-ring and they're interested. My helmet is very tight. It is not going to fall off in a crash. I'm very confident of that.
Yes.
So I think the D-ring is I mean, it's motorcycle rated, so it's very strong, but I don't think I need the D-ring. I think I'm okay with this ratchet system. And so if anyone has a D-ring and they don't like it and they're interested in this ratchet, I will put a link. You can find them. I just found it on Amazon. So I will put a link to this one. It works great. It was like maybe $14 or $15, but boy, was I grateful for that thing. And it's really saved the helmet. So, so I have my gratitude of the week is for the D-ring replacement motorcycle helmet quick release buckle kit. Oh man, I almost said it. I stumbled at the end.
That's a mouthful. That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that, that when you showed it to me, I was like, yeah, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. And yeah, if you're a motorcyclist or a mountain biker, why not? I mean, these helmets don't come off your head anyway. It's just like, they're so fitted, it's like, this is really just to make sure, so I think it'd be perfectly fine. My mountain bike tip, I guess staying on theme a little bit, talking about your helmet and crashes, is the first aid kit. And if you are someone that rides with a pack, and you're able to fit a first aid kit, get yourself one. They're only $14. They're really small. They're really lightweight. I'll leave a link to this one. I think I got it off of Amazon. But man, they come in so handy. I did not get hurt in terms of like a cut, but getting hurt on the mountain made me think about that. Like, man, if I was bleeding or anything like that, I would have been prepared. I had that first aid kit in my pack. So yeah, if you have a pack, just get one and put one in there. Man, you never know when it's going to come in handy. So yep, first aid kit.
I did the same thing. I broke my face and went to the hospital. There was no first aid kit, was not doing anything for the kind of trouble I was in. And then afterwards, I bought a first aid kit and I put it in my pack. I was like, I should really, after going through that, and I think you were talking about when you had one of your catastrophic injuries that sent you to the hospital. For whatever reason, after I went to the hospital, I was like, oh, I should be riding with a first aid kit. And I did the same exact thing. I bought a relatively cheap one off Amazon, and it's in my pack. If it's a little bit extra weight, it's a little bit, it's
nothing.
It takes up a little bit of space. It's there. And, it might be for you. It might be for someone else. And, maybe it's like getting the snowblower out the day before a snowstorm and it doesn't snow, like let's just carry our first aid kits around and never need them. Let's never need them.
I love it.
Good to be prepared. So
yes, sir.
Yes, that's an excellent tip. Well, if you're still listening, you are definitely one of us. You love mountain biking. We appreciate that. We have gratitude for you. Rate and subscribe on your podcast player. Rate and subscribe on YouTube. Ride and Laugh One at Gmail. Leave us a comment. And everybody have a great week of riding. We appreciate gratitude. Ride and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.